Alright everyone, and welcome to the start of my F1 24 Game Ideas series. Today we're going to be discussing classic DLC tracks and also classic cars, because both of them need to be in F1 24. Now I'm going to start with classic / DLC tracks. We already have 3 DLC tracks on F1 23, those being China, France and Portugal. Now, China is actually not going to be a DLC track on F1 24 because obviously it's on the calendar for next year. So that leaves us with France and Portugal, which, if both were carried over from F1 23 to F1 24, then that would give us a total of 26 tracks, which is same as this year, because none of the tracks, that there's no new tracks coming to the calendar next year. It's only the return of Imola and China, which are already on the F1 game. So yes, now whether or not there'll be a new model for China, which hasn't had a new model in 27 years, I don't know about that. So that just leaves us with France and Portugal, and obviously a lot of what's going to happen with DLC tracks in the future depends on if there is going to be a new game engine, which it's been asked for a long time. To switch up to Unreal Engine 5. However, there are obviously issues surrounding the future of the F1 game. Unlike the WRC game, they don't build the F1 game from scratch. They copy and paste it over the years, which probably means the Ego engine is probably going to stick around, unfortunately, for years. Now, I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go too much into the new engine. I think they need to add 4 more. Now, the problem I think also that the game has is that they add them all at launch. Now, I can see this being a problem in future years, because you can keep adding tracks to the game series. However, the problem is you're eventually either going to run out of tracks or run out of money or licensing, or something's going to get in the way, meaning that the DLC tracks isn't sustainable long term if you're going to do one-off releases. But I think that it makes more sense in the short term over that game cycle, but then longer term, you're stuck with releases for stuff. Classic cars is a bit more easier with that, and I'll come back to that later on. But I think they should be able to add 4 more easily, because they've been on the F1 game before. Those 4 being Hockenheim, the Nürburgring, Istanbul, and Sepang as well. Now, I think these 4 are easy. That would take the total number of tracks on the F1 game to 30, which would be impressive. It gives a lot of variety, and would I be happy if there were 30 tracks on F1 24? Yes, I think I would. But obviously I want as many as possible. So there are others out there that could potentially be linked. Mugello raced in F1 2020, of course. And then if we go further back, we've got the likes of Long Beach, Kyalami, which is on Forza Motorsport, I should point out, Indianapolis, and you've got maybe even left field tracks like Vietnam, the shorter layouts, maybe even like the older layouts of tracks like they've had in Project Cars 2, stuff like that. Let me know which classic and DLC tracks though you want to see in the comments below. As well, obviously that I've mentioned so many tracks over the years that need to in this series. Like, I don't want to be too repetitive, because I've mentioned this a lot of times before, and all we've got so far is leftover versions of France and Portugal and China, which on the face of it is not that great. Now, obviously we also have classic cars, and as ORT Racing said in a community post, I'll come back to his community post when we do the career mode episode soon, but classic cars Supercars need to go. Like, then they're not even on display anymore. They're hidden out the way. They're not used by anyone. It's just pointless. Replace them with classic cars, and I want to see classic car scenarios in F1 World. And I think what this could be is potentially also on a classic track as well, getting the two together as well, is basically a scenario from yesteryear, like Senna's gearbox issue at Brazil back in 1988. Imagine having to replay that. Now, it would be a little bit difficult because obviously you've got other cars. There'd have to be the classes again. That's got similar performances. But I'd also like to see a mixture of liveries. So many cool looking liveries over the years. The Honda Earth livery, the Jordan livery, from the mid 2000s. Would love to see those in the F1 game as well as returns like the 18 McLaren, Michael Schumacher's 2004 winning Ferrari, the Brawn car that was popular, and the BMW Williams. Maybe even add the BMW Sauber as well, and the Renault. Maybe even look at some adding like a car for each team. I know that's a little bit difficult with Haas because they've only existed since 2016, but the other 9 teams, you should at least have one car for each team as well. Like the BMW Sauber for Sauber. Bit iffy with AlphaTauri, but you could have one of the Toro Rosso liveries. Maybe have the last Toro Rosso that was a V10 back in 2006. The last V10 car on the grid. Was it 2006? It was a V10 engine as well, because they're doing what they're doing next. Trying to do next year. It's Coffee Red Bull from last year. But yeah, obviously you've probably got your favourites as well. Let me know in the comments below. Maybe even like Hamilton's title winning McLaren from 2008. Maybe some older classics. We only went back as far as 1972. And obviously they've got some very old F1 cars on the F1 game. So maybe having the 1950 Alfa Romeo, the first car that won the Drivers' Championship. Maybe the 1958 Van Wall as well. I know that's a lot to think about. And you're probably looking, if you return, for somewhere between 15 and 20 classic cars. Probably 20, because you probably want the multiple categories like they did before. Obviously F1 2019 had 30 because it was the only game to have those C3 class cars as well. And it'd be nice if we had the C4 category cars from the early years. Then you get the full range of classic cars as well. The advantage of having classic cars is you don't necessarily have to revisit them game by game, because they don't need to be following the handling model of the game necessarily, because obviously their handling model isn't the current game. It's for a game a long time ago. But that's obviously a different issue about the handling model as well. But yeah, let me know what you want to see in terms of classic cars, DLC and classic tracks in the comments below. If you've got any other game ideas for future videos and want to be featured, then let me know in the comments below. But yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it today's episode. If you have enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel to see plenty more F1 24 game ideas video. Until the next video, then I'll see you next time. Take care, enjoy your day, and goodbye.